AUGs are some of my favourite. You guys know that. AUGs. Oh, Christ, AUGs. I love me an AUG. Fucking love an AUG. Now, this belongs to Snowball. He basically doesn't get along with this scope. He's not one of the cool kids, so he wouldn't understand about why you need this scope. He wants to put a flat top riser on it, and I've gone, yeah, I can put a flat top on it. Let's get a whole complete gun and swap them over. That way you've got a backup gun and whatever else. He said also, because this is one that I built for him a year ago, I guess, and he said there's a feeding issue, but it's intermittent and it's mag dependent, is my understanding. He didn't send any mags with it. I've tested it on this high cap that came with the ASG AUG, and it feeds flawlessly on 7.4, 9.9 and 11.1. So it's probably just his mags. If anyone does know which mags do like to feed best in which AUG, if you've had any good luck with that, let me know about that, and I will have a, I'd like to let people know. The only AUG that I actually use is my one that's converted to 9mm, so I just use G&P Uzi mags, and that's how I run it, so I've got fuck all clue. If you've got any ideas, please help somebody out, because I don't know the answer. This is a very, very dull job, but I figured let's do another of those little videos where I chat and we go through a couple of things. Simple shit. So I thought I'd put up a little video just going through... What was I going to do in this video? I've forgotten. I figured this is a good time to go through the difference in how something sounds. Now, a couple of people recently have said, hey, the gun sounds so much quieter in its gears now that you've done your work on it, and it's faster in full auto and snappier in semi-auto, and everything is great there. When there's no BBs in the gun, it's noisier now. Why? Some of these people have whinged. Some of these people have just gone, explain it to me so I understand. So I'll explain it so it's understood. Now, I've not pulled out the ultimate and best examples of this. I've just grabbed bits out, all right? There are pistons out there that are full plastic. They've got one metal tooth, and that is on the release end. Everything else is plastic. They've even just got a plastic bit in the back with a screw going to a plastic piston head. And those are the lightest pistons. The lighter the piston, the more spring power you need to push more energy for a heavier BB down the barrel. Again, I'm really dumbing this down for me and for you. I know there's going to be a mathematical equation involved. I don't give a shit what you think. Don't bother writing it. I'm not going to read it. I'm saying that it's going to pull back slightly quicker. It's going to go forward a lot faster. And a heavier piston will give you better results if you want to use heavier BBs. That's what I'm saying. Now, this is a DSG'd rack from something, but it's a full metal rack, and it's a lightweight piston, and it's a plastic piston head. This slamming home on a plastic cylinder head with a plastic rubber pad, that is going to make less noise than if you were using a piston. This is an LCT, and it's got the aluminium piston head on. This rack overall weighs, at the moment, more than this one, because I removed teeth because I've just pulled it out of a pile of pistons. This rack would weigh basically slightly less than the rack in this one if it was complete, and this plastic piston would weigh more than this one because this one's got cutouts. But the piston head is one-piece aluminium, and it weighs a hell of a lot more than this one. Now, there are times and places to use each kind of piston, piston head, cylinder head, etc. So, if I am throwing a heavier piston with a heavier piston head into a plastic, boring, basic cylinder head, when this is sat in the gearbox, you're going to hear less reverberation because it's plastic around the little lugs that hold this in place. It's plastic overall. The only metal part is going to be the spout. And the pad, again, this is dependent on the type you get. We could pull out this this is a brass one, it's got a different kind of pad. There's loads of variations. What I'm saying is the plastic cylinder head is going to give less noise when it's hit by a really heavy piston, and even less noise when it's hit by a more plastic piston. It's going to absorb a lot more of that impact, and it's going to disperse it in different ways. Now, when you are running something that is going to be more powerful, faster, etc., etc., you want to use something that's more durable. So if you go with something that's CNC'd aluminium, that, with the heavy, is going to make more noise. It just is. And then if I were to put it on this one, it's going to make more noise than these. You can't quite tell there, but there is a difference in noise. All right? So the reverberations around this one, all the energy is going to be trying to go forward, and it's going to be metal on metal. It's going to reverberate a bit more, but it's going to be more durable. There's a time and place for plastic cylinder heads. There's a time and place for plastic nozzles. Time and place for plastic piston heads. You pick the right thing for the job. This one's one of the G&G red ones. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not the best, but in certain builds, it's what I use. It depends on the build, and it depends on the budget. If the person hasn't got the budget, they can't put all the parts in there. So, example, I did a Crytac for somebody, and the gun, he said, everything about it's better, but it is more noisy and should he worry? Because there is more noise. But he was testing it with no BB in the chamber. Now, the gun is going to sound different when there's no BB in the chamber. Effectively, what you've got is this. Just throwing this together randomly. There's air seal, right? What you've got is an air brake. If you hold that down, that's going to slow. Now imagine there's a nozzle on there. Let's not imagine. Let's just put a random nozzle on there. If he could put a fucking nozzle on there. Now, even without the O-rings, this has got an air seal. Because of the type of pad, alright? There's still air seal there, alright? So, if we throw a nozzle on that one, because the other one didn't fit any nozzles. It's wide bore. It's bore up. So, with that on there, there is a bit of air brake going on, but the air can leak around the outside because there's no O-rings and whatever else. And you want to be testing your air compression with the nozzle forward anyway. That's how you really test it, because the nozzle should be kind of forward. It's never going to go all the way back. Now, if you've got a BB in the chamber, chances are that nozzle, chances are, not every time, chances are your nozzle is pressing on the BB. And this is where the type of nozzle comes into play. This one, it's a seamer. You see it's got the 3 little cutouts. That doesn't apply a lot of air brake. Not really. But, yeah, if I were to use one that does, so example, I'm just going to grab this one out. I think it's AUG. Is there an air seal on it? Yes, there is. So if I put the BB over that one, it is giving it some brake. Then if I go back to this one, that's just a clear circle. This one has got little cutouts. They have reasons for doing it. Many reasons, I'm not going to go into it. But you can see that I don't have that benefit with that nozzle. The nozzle's not bad, but it does leak air from the outside. So that air brake is good for your gun. That air brake means everything is slowing down for a micron of a second, the smallest amount of time you can think of. It is slowing it down. The BB is then going down the barrel, off it fucks, and this here is then free to move again. This is where high-speed builds can fail, because a high-speed build, you're going to be having more rounds coming out of it, it's higher speed, you're paying less attention. You're paying less attention. So if your gun's doing this rate of fire, da 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 da, when you hear it go da 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 clonk and you get a jam BB, da 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 clonk clonk, oh, I hear it. When your gun's going like this, when you hear the you might notice just as quickly, but it's tried to cycle too many times. Now, if you've got that airlock, the nozzle's there, the BB's jammed in your hot rubber, the piston isn't going as fast. Which means the gears are still turning as fast as they were before, but instead of it this fast, now it's going that fast. You've got a build-up of air. Your piston is not all the way forward when it's picking up from the back tooth. Instead, it might be picking up perhaps here. Or here. And then as it picks up, it chews a bit of tooth, causes some noise, does some damage, but it's normally able to bring it back a little bit further. And then it tries to go again. And this time it gets even less further forward, and now it's damaging these teeth. That's the problem. This is why I don't do DSG builds for people, because semi-auto, it's going to be fine. As soon as you put it into full auto, if you don't notice you've got a BB jam, that's where the problem occurs. And the friction between the BB going across the rubber in semi, even on full auto. What the hell noise was that? What's that weird noise, Faye? What was it? So the full auto, I don't know why she made that sound. The full auto on a regular gun, noisy little bugger. The full auto on a regular gun means the BB is going to be going across the hot rubber, and in a prolonged 10-15 second burst, everything get a little bit warm, a little bit of friction, and the BB's clog, jam, cause problem. With a very high rate of fire gun, that can still happen. Now, with something like an HPA build, you're not going to get the damage on the inside of the gun because the gears and shit don't exist. With an electric gun, you're going to get that problem. The things are going to bind into each other when you don't want them to. And obviously, if the BBs are coming out the end of the gun 3-4 times as fast as they were as standard, that's 3 to 4 times the amount of friction that's going through. And obviously, I could do that, and it's not going to cause, I could do that all day, it's going to cause me no damage. If I go like this, you can feel it getting a bit warm. If that was going crazy fast, you're going to feel the heat, you're going to feel the friction. That's what's happening to your rubber, okay? That's the problem with the high-speed builds. That's where the damage normally occurs. Now, because of the air brake going on, you haven't got the piston slamming home when it's full force like that. With the air brake going on, and try and create a little tiny bit of air brake. I don't know if I'll be able to do it or not. Let's try, okay? With a little bit of air brake going on, you can see that it's still able to close it up. But there's that moment, just that moment where it's literally acting as an air brake. And that is why the gun is quieter. Now, cheaper guns use plastic parts. More top-end builds will use aluminium parts. It's common for an airsoft gun to have a full plastic rack. I mean, VFC have got half metal teeth. Crytek and KWA, I think KWA has got 3 metal teeth, am I right? I think. Different amounts of metal teeth. You want the piston to break. If you get that problem, the piston, if it goes, you can take the piston out, clean out the crap, put a different piston and carry on playing. It's not as durable as a metal piston. And in a perfect world, I'll be putting plastic pistons in everyone's guns because it does make the whole job quicker, easier, cheaper. If you've got a metal rack, and you know, a tough one, like the ones I use at the moment are heat-treated steel racks. They are tough as fuck. And if you're using decent CNC gears, you know, something down the line has got to break. And you don't want anything to break, but there needs to be a weak point somewhere. So this is why it's always difficult with the real top-end builds and why they do cost more money. This is where expectation comes from. If you put down 100 quid, I've got 100 quid to make this gun better. That's risky for me because I'll still make the same amount of money in time. I'm still going to charge you. It takes me 2 hours. I'm charging you 2 hours. But if I say to you, well, you need to change your piston to one of these, definitely, and I can short stroke your gears and reshim and do all that cool stuff and change your spring, you'll be within budget. If the gears then go ploppers, there's nothing I can do about that because there's no budget to change them. But also, the customer gets the gun back and they can't really tell the difference. They can't feel it. They can go, oh, I guess it is like a fraction of a second faster in semi, but I'm not really noticing it. What have I paid for? Like, the gun sounds a bit quieter, but what have I paid for? And that's what you've got to think about. What are you paying for? Now, I'm absolutely straight down the fucking line with people. If you spend £1,000 on upgrades, your gun is not going to be twice as good as someone who spent £500 on upgrades. It's just not going to be. There is a point where you are spending the money just so you can stand there with your cock out and wave it at the other players. That's the only reason it's happening. But there is a point where if you don't have the money to spend, like people who want a repair, That's an hour charge. When I do my Novrich warranty stuff, I charge an hour of time. They supply the parts, and I can do it with my eyes closed. It's complete muscle memory. I'm not having to do any major reshimming. I'm not having to go out of my way to do anything. It is just put it back to the way the factory would have sent it out. And then I'll do that and just change a couple of little bits to make sure it's just a little bit better than when they received it. And then that's it, plop, done. It's rinse and repeat work. But when somebody wants to see a change in the performance of their gun, we can do that with a simple hot rubber. We can do that by changing the gears out. But if you put a set of high-speed gears into your gun, you're going to see the semi-auto's faster, the full auto's faster than what it was. If you change out just your motor, whenever I say these, they're just those gears. Now it's just the motor. If you change it out to just a motor, let's say you've gone from a standard gun to a high torque 22 TPA motor, you're going to see that, yes, on 11.1 it's definitely snappier. But if the rest of the gun is still completely standard, whatever's in there, at UK power, do you really want to be using 11.1 in that? I wouldn't. But on a 7.4, that high torque motor is going to be a little bit slow because it requires a bit more voltage to do what it does best. You're not going to see a major improvement, and you're going to go, I can feel a difference. It's not what I expected. It's not that I expected more. So you kind of have to go with the gears and the motor. But then, the air seal components, well, it's still a bit up and down. I'm getting like 10 or 12 FPS in variance, and I'm trying to bring that down to between, no variance and say 5 FPS. I'm trying to bring that variance down. It doesn't matter in the long run, but you do want as little variance as possible. And that's difficult as well, because people expect that if I bring their variance of 20 FPS, say, down to 2 FPS of variance, they think their projectiles are going to go further and straighter, and reality is it might not. It probably won't, because that entire thing that's not the way it works. It just doesn't work that way. You need to have more power to get more range. Accuracy is dictated by the hop rubber and the barrel on the hop unit, not so much variation in the shots. Like over the course of distance, the big variation, hell yeah, you're going to see it. But even with 20 FPS of difference, it's quite hard to actually see the variance. It really is. So spending a little bit and just doing the basic amount of work, you can't expect to get that thing back and go, wow, it shoots further, straighter, snappier, faster, more powerful, quieter, everything about this is brilliant. You can't do that if you only change the air seal components and do a little short stroke of the original gears. You're never going to see it. I'm not saying it's not worth doing, because your gun will last longer, it will feel better, but you're not going to see a difference. But you might see or feel or hear a difference you weren't expecting. So a cheap plastic JG piston and cylinder setup hitting home will have very little air seal. It will be the cheapest of the plastic parts. They're very soft and there, but it's going to sound quite soft when it hits, because it's all soft material. If you change out the soft material to a tough material, think of it as clapping. If I clap here, that's the noise I'm getting. If I clap with the softer parts of my hands, it's a different sound. It's all different sounds. And that's what happens. Even if you were to just tap the back of a cylinder head, let's do it with a rubber mallet. So I'll just keep that open for dry firing the gun. That's how it sounds. Plastic one. It sounds different. And the same with this. It all's going to sound different. The parts you're using are going to sound different. If you've got metal parts in there to make everything more durable and last longer, you are going to have a gun that may sound different. Sometimes it isn't, but the only way to really know is to test the gun with ammo in the chamber. That's the only way. My good friend Josh from Airsmiths, the way he explains to his customer, he told me today, we were discussing it, and he's like, when you were a kid, did you play Cowboys and Indians? What noise does the Indian make? And when you're a kid and you play the game, you're putting your hand over your mouth, that's the noise they make. listen to the difference between your hand being away from your mouth and when you're touching on it, you can hear a difference, you know? There are loads of different ways you can think about doing this. And the easiest way to explain it is just to go down this route and say, this is how it sounds when it's standard, this is how it sounds afterwards. This is why I send everybody videos, and it's why I might elect to use a piston and piston head I wouldn't normally use. You know, if I'm doing a DSG build, which as you know, I've not done one of those in years, but if I were to do a high-speed build, I would select the parts that I feel are best for it. And if that customer then says to me, if I were to do a high-speed build for somebody, and that customer to say, yeah, but I don't want, if you don't need to change this, or this, really, I prefer you didn't, I'm not going to do the high-speed build, because I need to make it reliable. Customers are always happy to spend less money at the time and accept the responsibility and the risk if the original parts break. Until the original parts break, then they become screaming Karens. And I'm not going to deal with the Kevins and the Karens. I'm not going to. So if people go, yeah, I want all this to happen, I will point out, you probably don't want to do this and this. Spend more money over on this part here and understand why I'm not doing this. And I try and run through with everybody the ifs, whens, what, you know, all this shit, so people really do understand why I'm doing it. And every single AEG is different. Both of these are Styrorgs. They're both from different companies. One of them I've modified already. One of them is completely standard out the box. They're going to sound different. This one is completely top to tails. It's got the Perrin Org warhead motor. It's got everything done. It is swift. It is snappy. It's quiet. It's good. And this one is going to sound like a completely standard gun where a bit's just fallen out of it. We'll figure out what that was in a minute. Everything's going to sound different. If you listen to this one, I'm making it make as many different sounds as I can. This one is going to sound different. It's going to sound different because the parts on the inside are different manufacturers and they're aftermarket and they've been changed. There are reasons why this is going to sound different. You know, it's a big difference. It's a big difference. There are many reasons to change the parts, and it may have a knock-on effect if you do or don't change certain parts. People basically just have to trust that what I'm doing is the best thing for the job they want. And that is why I don't take on fucking TSG builds and DSG builds. And I don't take on 1.4 dual DMR builds because it's pointless. And it's why I don't take on it. I won't do this. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do your AEP. I'm not going to do it. It's fruitless. You know, you're not going to get the massive benefits that the build is going to really give you. And if you do, it won't be for long. It's a lot of maintenance. And I'm not saying a DSG can't be reliable. I'm saying that it requires very special treatment and care. I'm not saying that a lower powered DMR isn't in some way useful. No, I am. A low powered DMR is definitely not useful. Everything will sound different once it's been worked on. It should sound better, but it might not sound the same. It's just understanding why things sound different. So before I show you what horrors I've just created, and I'm so fucking proud of myself about it too, this is the difference, okay? So 11.1 inside the completely standard org that's now got the scope on it, so semi. All right, versus the one I built. That is a very small 11.1. Now, I've just accidentally created the most Austrian thing I have ever created. This, oh God. For the most Austrian thing you'll see in your life. What could make an AUG more Austrian than it takes one of these ARP mags? Not only does it actually fit and feed, but the ridges on the inside actually hold the mag in. I mean, if you pull it, it's going to come out, right? But it's in there. You can't argue it. It's in there, look. Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm going to have to do a tiny, tiny mod just to keep this in place. I'm going to put a grub screw here. Just a tiny little mod. Nothing much. So a nice little locating hole there. Goes in there like that. I will glue that when I'm happy with it. And then that on there. Like that. She in. Lovely. Look at that. I like to put little tips in. The little locating screw thing is something I used to do with Classic Armies when they first... Then TM had them, then JG had them, but then Classic Army came out with the trademark one and it was really good. And it wasn't just like lasered, it had like, oh, it was good, it was really good. But that little trick there, everyone should learn that trick. Just make sure that screw, or that lever, sorry, doesn't touch the screw. There you go, look lovely. Sorted. What next?